Hey everyone, welcome to the Femmenomics podcast where we talk about all things real estate, mindset, and magic. I am Jen, foundress of Femmenomics, and with me today, as always, is my effervescent co-host, Odessa Christiana. Odessa, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm just full of bubbles and giggles today. I'm just delighted to be here. We have a guest today. So excited for this. Before I introduce you to the incredible Carrie Davis, I just want to tell you, listeners, a little bit about how I met Carrie and then why she's here today and what the focus of this episode is going to be about, which is going to be incredible. I'm so excited for this. So, back about 3-ish years ago, I think it was like spring, summer of 2022, I booked myself a really sweet little Airbnb in Tacoma, Washington. And in I was still living in Southern California at the time. And I had, of course, my popular Airbnb, the Atomic Lair, a very mid-century modern, over-the-top place. And I was scanning Tacoma for little Airbnbs that looked comfortable for me to stay in. And I found this little gem of a place, and I just couldn't believe it was available, and I could book myself in for a couple of nights. So I ended up staying there. And as an Airbnb hostess myself, I am extremely picky and I have an eagle eye for things. And I really notice the details and the cleanliness and the overall guest experience. And I was blown away by the extent that this woman went to make her place very comfortable to her guests, just above and beyond. It was beautifully decorated. She thought of everything and then some. She thought of things that I wouldn't have thought about. And it impressed the socks off of me. And I found something the other day. I left her a note when I was getting ready to leave her place after my stay, and I took a picture of it and I found it the other day. And I just wanted to read a couple words. I said, "You beyond nailed what, in my opinion, every Airbnb host should be doing. A well appointed space, decorative touches while leaving space for your guest things, exceptional communication and hospitality, originality and flair." I could go on and on. Carrie, for years, I called myself the vacation rental queen. You now know why. And I believe I have found the woman to pass that crown to.
Odessa, we're not supposed to start with tears. That's silly. You're supposed to like wait for a build-up or something.
We're building to something here.
Hi. You signed it in your book. You have that really cool book. I don't know if you talk about it, but it's like the step by step guide. It's phenomenal and beautifully done, of course, for helping Airbnb hosts walk through the process. So anyways, I still have it and she's on display. So I just have to say how meaningful that was to come from you. And if I can put a little glitter around it, is that I have still to this day, it's 4 years in, and I have yet to ever go look to see if any of my guests have a listing. And I went to your listing and I was terrified. And mine's a converted basement, right? Like I think I did it, what you can do with the basement, but oh my gosh, you have this pink pool and the bar outside that's a cool camper. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And then here's the other irony. You're literally the first and only one of 2 guests that I've ever actually said, hey, want to grab, have a glass of wine or, connect and visit. So it's really crazy to me how things do just line up and people are brought into your life. I am so forever grateful that I got to have you cross my path, but then I got to keep you. Thank you for being you and just being forward in who you are, because it allows those of us around you to be who we are. And I really appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much, Carrie. This is by no means your ordinary podcast. This is, we talk about not only the practical, but we talk about the mindset and the magic. And this is just a representation of what magic does exist in the world when there are people like us that are brought together. And I have this feeling, I knew that you two needed to meet. And I just have this feeling that there's some really tremendous things coming for all of us, and maybe more collaborations here. And it's just incredible what happens when we do come together and we do just acknowledge the other women in the room and see what they're all about, and maybe ask them to have a glass of wine or something, you know. I mean, look what happened. With that being said, I know that you and I could talk about the importance of the decor and the setup and that beautiful part of your listing and the cleanliness and all of that. I know we could talk about that for years. But you and I recently had a conversation that really kind of opened my eyes. And that was the magic that you have behind keeping your listing like at practically full capacity, like all the time, which is getting unheard of in the world of Airbnb for a lot of hosts. You were talking about optimizing your actual listing. So today I would love to just kind of put our focus on that, the importance of and how to set up your listing. What you recommend others to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with, if it's okay, I might share a little bit about my background and why I would even be, speaking about this from this angle. I've been,
Please,
yeah,
please, yes.
So I've been in marketing for about 25 years. Obviously, about 2006, I moved really heavy into digital marketing, because that's when, things like landing pages, I remember the first QR codes, you know what I mean? And we thought they were going to be hot and big, and then they kind of went dead for a while, and then they came back, and like now they're, a raging success. But there was all these trends. I was part of a large worldwide humanitarian organization when social media hit, and everyone was terrified to have one because, it's very vulnerable, and, things just can go wild. But then everyone realized you have to have one, and you cannot exist in the world because, with social media, that's really accountability. I always say that, social media is your accountability. It makes people feel like if you exist, not only can they kind of see what you're up to, what people are saying about you, how you interact, but also they just have in their back pocket, even if they never consciously think it, if you don't treat me right, you don't take care of me, I'll put the world on notice, and you will be on notice. So that's social media. And then because I worked for humanitarian organizations, I worked for a high school at one point. I worked for the Tacoma Pierce County Chamber, which is a regional chamber, not just a city chamber, that did a lot of advocacy work for small businesses. So basically, I never had any money to work with. And I have big ideas, and I have anyone who's worked with me, you could go look at my website at my little testimonials or whatever, and you'll just see over and over again, Carrie pushes the envelope. Like she doesn't even know what the envelope is. She just like dances around it. Because of that, I really was unwilling to compromise the results that we wanted to have. And so that meant learning how to do things. So it's like when you told me you were going to charge me $7,000 for a landing page so I could try to help this small group of children get sponsored, let's say, and it was going to take me 3 months to get it. I was like, no, I'll go teach myself how to build. And so you fast forward, as I became entrenched in not only doing web work for my day job that was outside of my scope of work, I started helping small businesses, because it just broke my heart to watch people have it all on the line, everything on the line. And this is something they've lost sleep about, they've dreamt about, they've probably risking their family. When your business fails, it isn't just the money that goes out the door. Sometimes your whole family kind of falls apart. And it was really heartbreaking to me. And so for me, websites initially, as my side hustle, was really a chance to be able to say, gosh, if I can help you, you could have the meanest lasagna in town, but if nobody knows, nobody cares. And so it started out there. And then that progressed, I realized that websites are what legitimize you. So just like a social media is what builds trust, websites, they are what somebody looks to say, does your business, is it real? Like, are you going to take my money and run? And I have like a really short story I'll share about my mom, who's 70, and she, with Facebook and YouTube, like that's it. That's all she knows, Facebook and YouTube. And we would all joke and say she might be mildly addicted. We had been trying to get her to get a lawn guy. We're like, just, when the lawn people, they will just walk across the street, Mom, ask them to, offer them $25. You're older. They'll just go, sure, I'll hit your yard. So I walk in one day and she says, Carrie, I think I'm going to call these guys. She's got this little flyer. She says, I think I'm going to call these guys. They're family owned and they have a nice flyer, right? I'm like, sure, sounds good. I walk in the kitchen, I'm getting myself something to drink, and around the corner I hear, you know what, Carrie, I'm just not comfortable with this. I'm not calling. I'm like, what could have happened in these 12 steps what could have possibly happened? Well, my mom, proud of her as I am, she got on Google and she tried to find them. She couldn't find them. And in an instant, a 70-year-old woman went from, oh, these guys seem really great. Guess what? How much money? I can tell you, print is expensive. The amount of money that they spent to push those out, and the fact that they didn't have somewhere for people to land to see that they were legitimate, it was a colossal fail, to be honest. And it's really
Deal
unfortunate
breaker.
because they probably were a great company. It should have worked for them. But all that to say is then you move down the progression of SEO and Google. And Google's kind of, mildly taken over the world. Now you have this other layer where, think about it. If you go and you look for a company, what do? You'll go to Google. And you're doing it two ways. Either you've already heard of this place, and so you're going to go try to find them specifically, or you're looking for something specific and you want it within a certain region and area, typically within your neighborhood, so to speak, especially if you're really good about supporting local small business. So it's so smart. It's scary smart. And with AI, it's next level smart. So in nanoseconds, it knows when you ask it a question. It's literally in nanoseconds trying to say, oh, you asked me a question. I'm going to come up with the best answers. And then I'm going to prioritize them. And we call it pop to the top. I'm going to take the ones that make the most sense. They're geotagging, all the things. I'm going to pop it to the top. Now, there's the other option of buying ads, Google ads, things like that. That's great. But instinctively, most people, you Google something, and what do? You see the sponsored ads. What do? You scroll past them and you go to what? The first ones that don't say sponsored, that aren't paid. And my peers are going to hate me for saying that, because that's kind of how we make our money, is Google ads. And so what that's called is organic search. I promise this is going somewhere. And so as that has happened, now you have this necessity to be found. Okay, so there's only two ways people find you. People find you from searching for you. And if you don't pop to the top think about it. How many pages deep do you go? Unless you're in Google Shopping, then you might go 20 pages in. But other than that, for the most part, you're going to go down one page. You might go to two, but the second that you go to the second page, your trust starts to go down. You don't even know it, but your being says, gosh, I don't know about these guys. It's a crazy thing. My little joke about you can make the meanest lasagna in town, but if nobody knows, nobody cares. Here's the deal. The truth is you make the meanest lasagna in town, but nobody knows and nobody cares. Right? So here's the problem with that, is that those people buried 4, 5, 6 pages in, 10, 12 pages in, could be the absolute best choice for you. But psychologically, we're inundated with too many choices everywhere we look, right? Imagery. And what's most important is to create trust, but it's also, so that's with humans, and 50% is humans, 50% is what I call bots. 50% is these algorithms. We have got to play the game. And you can say you don't like social media. I'm not big. I look like I have no life, and really I have a fantastic life. But because personally I'm not that interested in it. But from a business standpoint, you don't have a choice, because social media is how you push people. That's the only other way people find you. They either search for you or they are pushed to you. Push could be a referral, right? That's the best way. But in a world of, let's say, Airbnb, maybe somebody's going to refer you, but here's the deal. At the end of the day, you better pop to the top. You better show up. The great thing about it is the Airbnb has their own optimization. So they have like their own ranking. For example, if you're looking for a place in Union, for example, Washington, Airbnb is already going to be like doing its own crawl, right? Like it's looking for who's played the game right, who's doing all the things, because that's all about bots at that point. right? But then you have what I call double points. Double points is when you go to Google it. So if I Google, I want an Airbnb in Union, or I mean, I'm sorry, not an Airbnb. I'm looking for lodging, vacation and rental, whatever in Union. Guess what's going to pop up first? Airbnb. You know why? Because they've played the game. If you do a good job on Airbnb with your listing and it's solid and you're playing the game and you're doing all the things that are necessary on that back end for the bots, not only are you going to pop to the top of Airbnb, but you're going to pop high on Google as well. What I saw, I think it was 2000, was it 22? Odessa, you might recall, Airbnb did something. They went and basically completely overhauled their entire platform. Categories. I definitely know it was category based. When they did that, I literally watched this, what I would call a colossal nightmare. I mean, people that have been doing this 7, maybe even 10 years, booked solid, nothing. Calendars broke. They have 3 listings. They're freaking out. This is their business model. They didn't do anything to make this happen. What happened was Airbnb, when they did that, they wiped out their SEO. Here's the problem with digital. It is a momentum thing, and you build and you build and you build, and the second you stop, boom, popping down. But if you start over, you're at 0. So they have, obviously it's going to come back, but here's the problem with that. That means all of these people, which you'll hear people say, think about it. You hear people say, I did Airbnb for years. I loved it, but it's gone into crap. I barely can keep it 50% full anymore. You know why? Because Airbnb wiped out their SEO, we'll say down to 0. So they rebuilt just fine because they're big old huge mega corp, right? But you as an individual business owner and property owner and host, you didn't do anything different. You had built SEO and nobody even really knew it just because you were there in the beginning. Does that make sense? So you had more clicks than everybody. You had all these things that were just there by default because you'd been there for so long, and maybe since the beginning. So when you wipe yourself down to 0 on that, you as a host, even if Airbnb is soaring, you're nowhere to be found. You are buried. And then you've got these so all these people who bought up all these properties, right, and are launching Airbnbs, this is a thing. When that happens, guess what? Now they have marketing dollars. They know the game. So guess who's beating you out? Your family-owned property or your legacy property that you plan to leave to your kids, whatever that is, it's going to support your family. So one of you could stay home and raise your kids, whatever that looks like. I know I've talked a long time and I appreciate you hanging in there, but I really wanted to frame for people when they hear SEO, I think our eyes roll, or we don't even know, is this real? Is it make believe? Is it air? Is it just a good excuse to charge people a bunch of money for stuff? I really wanted to frame how the story unfolds, why it matters to you, and especially if you're a small business, and why you should either take the time to educate yourself, which there's a lot of things, you can go to YouTube and such. There's people like me. I have a very transactional model where I'm I'm not going to take a big retainer from you and suck you dry forever and ever, make you a bunch of empty promises. I tend to do more of hey, I can help you do this thing. I will roll it out and I will tell you how you can maintain it, or you can pay me to maintain it, whatever you like. But you should. If this is something that's still your dream, if this is something that's important to you, and this is something that you would like to do because it's just you're passionate about it. It's not just always about money. For me, it's not just about money. I know it's not for Odessa, right? I have a feeling Jen's, real estate ventures are it's passion, right? And vision. And so if that's the case, you have to address this because you will get swallowed up, especially with AI coming on the scene. My industry is getting rocked, and people like me must stay on top of the wave, because if we don't, the wave will pass us for sure. And so I'm swimming hard and fast because I want to make sure that not only but I can continue to help people who have visions and dreams, make them come true, to be honest. As cheesy as it is, that's just what makes me tick. So
I know you mean that too. I know you mean that. And it's really beautiful. And yes, don't stop talking. We're totally eating all of this up. And I really appreciate you sharing that backstory because for me personally, it helps me understand how everything works. so much better to have a little bit of that extra education. And I love how you bring things to a level that are very digestible when you talk about like Google points and things like that. So that's very appreciated. So coming into a newer Airbnb host or a brand new host setting up their very first listing, what are your recommendations? Like, how do we go about this so they can play the game and not get completely swallowed up in the sea?
Sure, sure. There's a number of things. Unfortunately, it would be almost impossible for me to share all of them just because
Sure,
there
of
is a
course.
there is a reason that there's kind of a what we'll call a level of expertise, right, in this arena. There's a reason that agencies are able to demand these sane retainers, right? And what can do is tell you exactly kind of some things you must do. I'm going to tell Autumn, I have a friend who shared some pictures with me yesterday. He might not ever listen to this podcast, as I don't think he's patient enough. So he might not ever find out I talked about him. But he showed me some pictures, and my first instinct was I wanted to tell him what order to put him in. And I wanted to tell him, I said, edit the Washington out of these things. And so I would say that is very important. That's for the human side. We talk to the bots, remember the searching or looking online, they're double points, they look for us on Airbnb, they look for us on Google, hopefully Airbnbs, we're surfing their SEO wave. Once we get there, right? Like once we get there, now it's all about the human, the photos, the
Mhm.
reviews, the interaction with the reviews. So responding to the reviews and saying thank you. Now, mind you, these are all points. I'm going to talk about it as points. So every time somebody leaves you a review, you get points. You get points if it's a 5-star review, right? This is where things like very clear messaging when you're saying goodbye to people, even when you're saying hello, very important to be clear with people in a very kind, not assumptive way. You don't want to be assume that people are going to give you a 5-star. You don't want to demand it, but you absolutely want to very kindly ask and be very clear why it matters. And hopefully you've done a good job of creating an experience where they want to honor you in that way. So all of that to say is that's points, right? We're getting points. And then it's very important that when you go into your listing, and here's the deal, this is where it gets very tingly. These platforms, and Airbnb's is pretty straightforward. Google's a nightmare. Facebook, and Meta, a nightmare. I mean, that's why we have a job, because to be honest, even for us, they're changing it all the time. It is a labyrinth. I'm not exaggerating. Labyrinth. But Airbnb's is, I think, done as well as you could do it because it's very complex, if that makes any sense. You have to go through and comb and comb. And then when I say answer every dumb little thing, and then you have to think about how to answer it. So if it's saying a description, you want to talk about all the cute things that you did that were important to you, right? Because you're thinking you're talking to humans, but a human will never find you if you don't talk to the bots first. So the reality is that now you have got to put on the hat of, if I'm describing my property, what are people searching for? It doesn't matter what I think, it's cool that it's mid-century modern. My place has got a mid-century modern vibe. So like for me, I might think that, and I do make mention of it, but guess what? I have to know what people are searching for. And if I know what they're searching for, I better pack those search terms, is what they're called. So search words, key phrases, keyword search, these are all common phrases people are somewhat familiar with. But you literally use every character that you can into that description. There are so many places, everything from a guidebook, right? It's a digital guidebook. For example, we live here in an area where we've got Point Defiance Park. We have these amazing like Point Ruston. I could go on for days, the things that are here around me. So guess what? My guidebook, I have built it to the 9. Do I want it? Is it a courtesy for my guests? Absolutely. Do I say in my little welcome message, check out my good guidebook because I spent a lot of time building it? Yes, absolutely. But really, the reason it serves a purpose is because of geotagging. So part of those algorithms, part of that search, part of those crawlers are what they're looking for. Remember, is I'm doing a search that I want to go to Tacoma, Washington. I'm looking for a place and a location. So it's just, it's looking who's collected the most points. That's all it's doing, real quick, fast. That's how it's popping you up. And so what it does is it says, oh, we can tell that this property is in Tacoma. Here's the deal. This is how specific it must be. I have to go look at Point Defiance Park. I got to go to their Google listing. I have to see exactly how they present themselves on Google, like letter for letter. Like if they say, point with PT period, Defiance Park, I have to put it that way. If I don't, do you see what I'm saying? There's a disconnect because these are nanoseconds. We're talking crazy nanosecond searches, right? So if I put POINT Defiance Park, it's not that it doesn't work, but every little detail counts. So you have to put it exactly how it's found. And so you're just packing the heck out of it. That's with photos, same kind of thing. You've got your photos of your place. Oh, please just make sure that they're beautiful. If you have any hope of succeeding
We could talk about this all day long. I just have to come in and say that is something that I hit on in my book, and I have something called the money shot. It's like I have scrolled a lot of Airbnb looking for places for myself and my husband to stay in the past. And that dark shot of your bathroom with the toilet seat up, I want to come and find you. Like, why?
It's like this weird mix of like, I want to strangle you and I just want to come save you.
You have to invest.
Yeah.
You have to invest. Like if you want to have a successful place that your guests are going to really come to.
And you know what? You're an artist, so you'll appreciate this. When I opened mine, I did a photo shoot here. We had probably about, I don't know, close to 20 models and about a dozen photographers come through because I was afraid I wouldn't have access to it and I would miss the opportunity. And that was true. So anyways, we have these people come through and part of the deal was, hey, but you're going to give me some pictures, some cool pictures for my, you know what I mean? When I launch my Airbnb, I'll make like a gallery wall, right? It'll be really cool. I didn't use one. And here's why, because you also have to be careful about who you choose to take your photos. They could be super vibey. I have some really cool edgy pictures that are down there that are like that mild, I call it the heroin goth like vibe, you know what I mean? But like my downstairs, kind of mid-century modern and a little bit cheery. I really like them. I just can't use them. A lot of photographers say like, oh, they really embrace natural light. You need somebody who understands that you got one chance and you got 2 seconds, if you're lucky, for people to be scrolling and for them to be captured out of the clutter and chaos of the digital space and for them to go, oh, I want to be there. And I can tell you what that means. Bright and airy. Bright and airy. That's what's going to bring people in. They should feel like they want to open that door and go, oh, this is where I want to be. And I'm just going to say this, it should not, I don't want to spend money and go stay at an estate sale, a bad estate sale. Okay. Like, let's be honest. Like, I don't want to go stay at grandma's house. I don't want to stay at some place that isn't as put together as my own home. I don't want to stay somewhere where it looks like you grabbed a mattress off of OfferUp or, Facebook Marketplace, shoved it in the corner, put a $19.99 comforter on it. That first shot should make them feel like, I just can't wait to kick off my shoes and be there. That's just to get them to stop scrolling. Now they got to open it. The second shot and maybe the third shot have got to be the next 2 money shots. For me, it's my bathroom, right? Like my bathroom and my tub and that whole vibe and experience. So guess what? I'm not putting things in order at this stage of the game because I'm just trying to get you and keep you. That's it. And now, mind you, every one of these descriptions, we're talking about bots now. Every one of these descriptions, I'm using every single character and I'm figuring out what people are searching for. I'm finding out, are people searching for spa? Are they searching for soaking tub? Are they searching for, right? Like I'm doing my research and I'm finding out because I need the bots to get us there. But then I also am going to describe it and tell you that I have a diffuser with essential oils and battery operated candles. So you cannot burn my house down under the guise of I have allergies, which I do, but I really don't want you to burn my house down. These are the kind of things that are going into the pictures. These are descriptions. This is about talking simultaneously to bots and to humans. It's a dance. every single effort you make 50-50 split. You should never do anything. Don't answer a question, don't write a description, don't put a photograph, don't do any of it without putting on the filter of, I'm talking 50% to humans right now and 50% to bots. And I can't talk to the humans unless I get the bots. I will say it is a labyrinth. I can't tell you how many times I look at these boards where you've got like all these people coming together that are asking questions and trying to support each other for, Airbnb or VRBO. And it's so hard for me because I just don't have the time to get into a bunch of conversations on these platforms. So I feel bad. Honestly, it would take this much. Look how long I've been talking. How long have I been talking? And I'm doing the cliff notes right now. You must fall down the rabbit hole. If you ask me how long it took me to build my listing, I probably spent 40 to 60 hours. And when I say that, I mean, I sat down for probably 12 to 14 hours at a time so I could go in the zone. But what I will tell you is, amongst a very saturated market here in the North Tacoma area, where we've got all these amazing, beautiful things within 2 to 5 minutes of us, we have a very established Airbnb community, which is fantastic. Everybody's very supportive of each other. The reality was, I'm going to need to ramp up, right? It's going to take a minute. And I posted mine at 3:30 in the morning after almost probably 60 hours, if I had to guess. I said, Carrie, out loud to myself in bed, this is ridiculous. Publish it. You can polish it over the next few days. I hit publish. I wake up at 6:45 in the morning with my first listing, and they're coming in 3 days. The problem with that was I was still doing some polishing downstairs, and I was so tired and out of my mind at that point, because you got to remember I was actually building the Airbnb like from nothing. I had one light switch, no walls, to launching, and I just had a photo shoot. I'm exhausted. I think that I did it a week out. So I think I have this whole weekend to have my electrician finish and, do all the things. And I wake up in a sheer panic because it says to me in basically 3 days, Jose is going to be showing up at my house. I'll never forget Jose. By the way, my electrician, phenomenal, showed up at noon that day, stayed till 3 in the morning. And I can't even believe what he did, but it was phenomenal. I had an amazing team. So be nice. If you're doing construction, be nice to your flip-flopping team, for God's sakes, because they will come through for you. But anywho.
Jen is just cracking
Yeah.
up over here because she has been through wild times the past few weeks, the past few months, years.
I'm dying actually at her asking me like to just walk her through it, like unscrewing a pipe or something. Let me just wire it myself. I'll do it.
That's right. Like I could do 220, right? And trust me, I knew better. You got to ask the question. So, and sometimes the question gets you a better answer. And sometimes you have to look really foolish because somebody smarter than you will have to save you. That is a really good technique sometimes. But anywho, all that to say, I've been booked solid since. I would say that on average, Odessa, you've been kind of along this ride and kind of been a part of my team for the last couple of years. So what would you say, like maybe once or twice a month, maybe I have somebody check out on one day and then check in on the next day?
You are seldom without a guest.
Back to back. Literally, I have somebody.
And months out, like looking at your calendar going forward.
Oh yeah, for 3
you're
months at least. And this is Tacoma. So as much as I love Tacoma, we are not a vacation spot. Then we had the economy. Let's just be honest, 2020, the end of 22 into 23, definitely 24, things started getting really hard for people. I'm not going to talk about it now. Maybe we can circle back around. I did do some shifts in my strategy, which did help. So if that was my marketing kicking in, and I stayed full. But I will tell you, people that I looked to that were not just my peers, but mentors were like at 50% capacity. They were reaching out to me and going, Carrie, what are you doing? Because they've been doing this for years. They know what they're doing. They're great. Love them. Great properties, all of the things. And they were like going on multiple platforms all of a sudden. And I never skipped a beat because I was always talking to the bots. I just kept talking to the bots. I guess at this point, I'll just pause and I'll say, hey, is there something that I'm missing here that you think that listeners would really benefit from?
I am coming from a different market. I'm coming from the opposite of saturation, where there is not nearly enough accommodations to go around.
And I know all of these things apply. Like, I'm so grateful for this information because so many of these things have been things that I never would have considered, like the double points. That's so interesting and just a built-in. I always took like my superhost status for granted, and I was like, it doesn't really matter, and now I understand from a completely different perspective why it really does matter. So I'm just thinking about all of that, how I can implement it and what key phrases I can use. And I'm just really, I'm sure that over the coming days and as I start to implement these things, I will absolutely have more questions. But for now, I'm still processing all of this incredible information, especially for me as I'm getting ready to set up my listing. So this is so great. Thank you.
I have a few things. What if you like to book from your own website? Are you duplicating? I know there's a term in SEO language about cannibalizing
Yeah,
when you like duplicate pages. Could you talk just a little bit to that?
absolutely. One of the things that all of these different platforms are looking for, and the crawlers, what's to call it, for a simple term, is original content. So it is important to mix it up. A lot of people are trying to lean on ChatGPT. Well, here's the deal. I guarantee you some version of that prompt has been put in thousands of times. Even but these big corporations, remember, they're hiring companies, and those companies are using affordable help to bust out content quickly that's not being monitored by anyone because nobody has time for that. So guess what's happening is Google has always, and search engines have always ranked based on content. So original content is part of the organic. Remember we talked about going past the sponsored ads and looking for those top ones? That's called organic search. That means you personally went and collected a bunch of points and you deserve to be at the top. If you start duplicating content and you're just copy and pasting and it's going across all three, essentially you just took 3 points and put them into one. If you're going to use AI, I'm telling you, even if it's not right now, I mean, think about plagiarism. If you were in college and you didn't cite something and they thought it even looked like something that you might have plagiarized, you were gone. They kicked you out. So tell me how you're going to ask a prompt that thousands of people are getting a very similar answer to, the same sentence structures, right? Everything's very similar. How do you think that's going to play out when it comes down to these browsers saying, who's the most original? Who's the most viable option? Who's the one that's going to pop to the top? When there's only 3 to 5 options for that out of the whole world. You are fighting for a spot at the table that only has a handful of seats. So I just want to warn you about that. And also the consistency. I'll circle back around to that, which is another thing you get points for. Think about it this way. A lot of people, small businesses especially, right? You get a site, you forget about it. Unless it's like horribly broken, you can't be bothered. You are not putting content on there. You are too busy making lasagna. Here's the problem with that is that Google is looking for activity because also there's a lot of people who put websites out there and they're not really doing anything. They're not really a viable business. They're not really a great option. It'll bury you. Only way it knows how to rate you or give you points is to go, oh, you're constantly interacting. You're updating your pricing on a regular basis. You're updating photos on a regular basis. You're adding new locations that are surrounding areas and restaurants, right? All it's looking for is, are you a viable business? Are you actually in the game? Or are you just some landing page that got set up 3 years ago that doesn't really even do anything anymore?
Should you be updating your listing fairly often then? Like maybe not like the actual house itself or the property, because that's just what it is, right? Unless you added a jacuzzi or something. But if there's a new restaurant in town, if there's a hot new restaurant in town, say, should you go in and say, you know, 2.5 miles to da 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 and describe the restaurant a little bit? Are things like that helpful?
Yes, absolutely. And you just literally think of it as points. Anytime you add a photo, points. Every photo you ever add should be beefed out, like use every character in that description, right?
Okay.
Because now you're getting double points because you're getting content points and you're getting description, right? Keyword phrases, all that stuff. Also, your pricing. If you update, so I don't use smart pricing. Not because it's not incredibly convenient, but here's the deal is that I go on literally weekly and sometimes every few days, and I just go, and it's maybe a couple bucks, but I go through my calendar and I am constantly changing those prices, but I'm also looking at my competition, because if you really are an active business owner, you should be looking at your competition. That's like a number one marketing rules, know your competition. I can tell you should not be trusting a generic algorithm basically that's just looking at your general area and really doesn't know the value of your property. It's just generally applying general rules and going, I generally think that you could probably get this much for your space. It overprices. Like there's sometimes I'm like, why would it put that price? There's no chance. Like I'm not even interested. I don't even care to get that much money for it because it's just not feasible. And guess what? It would be empty. All that to say is I'm trying to gather points, and that's why you're updating all of those things. Like I said, could be that you add some new things. Maybe you're listing, because you want to be careful with the human side of things. Your listing itself, people will get exhausted. At some point they're like, all right, I've seen enough pictures, right? So that's where I will use my digital guide. That gets me the points I need. It is a great service to my guests if they decide to leverage it, but it's a way for me to not bog down my listing to the point where I've got 120 photos on my listing. Because here's another thing you get points for. When people go to your site, which is your Airbnb listing, right? When they get there, you get points for how long they stay. You get points for how many times they swipe through a picture.
Just really quick, the digital guide that you've mentioned, it's been a few years since I hosted personally. Can you just let our listeners know, is that something that is installed in the Airbnb listing app or something that can it be clicked on by people that are looking to book, or is it just for your guests?
I have to be honest, so a lot of people don't do it, right? So even though I've been a guest places, I have yet to experience it from a guest standpoint. So that's just something I probably need to go do. I know it's available to people who book with you.
Okay.
I don't know if it's public, but I think it is. I will say this, that when you're setting up your listing, you have to poke around. Remember I said it's a labyrinth? It's not overtly obvious. A lot of these things that you should be doing, you kind of got to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig.
Basically, like, don't overlook anything that is within Airbnb, or for that matter, other platforms. If they're offering you something to make a more inviting place for your guests or make better guest experience, like utilize that and stock it full of good, fresh, useful content. And keeping in mind, like what you brought up today is gold to me, because I have never really thought that much about speaking more to, well, not more to, but a 50% the bots versus the people. I've always myself been very people oriented. So going forward, knowing that, hey, I'm talking to the bots and then the people are going to come. So the 50-50, that is just golden advice. I love that. Thank you. Jen, did you have a question?
I do. Okay. We have talked a lot about Airbnb today. What would you tell people who want to pull away from bigger platforms like that and start a more sort of homegrown, maybe put the listings on their own personal websites and just get away from the fees and maybe the politics and the whole everything that comes with an Airbnb listing or Vrbo listing?
Sure. I would say if you know how to play the game and you're good at marketing, it's a risk worthy of doing. I think it's always good to have a website. I would say you better be in the game and know the game. And on all levels, right? Because you are talking about everything from insurance and coverage, liability, leasing agreements, accountability. I will say I really like the accountability it comes with. I mean, I have something set up where if you have a 4-star or less, I think you have to have at least a 4-star to even book with me, or you got to ask me permission. I mean, you can't instant book my space. So there's a lot of vulnerabilities. I would say just know the game and be committed to it and be willing to be kind of all in on from the marketing standpoint, especially because there really is saturation. And it's kind of a hard world and hard to compete out there in that digital space. It's a massive universe. So for me as a marketer, I personally, the nominal fee that the Airbnb charges me, which I'm fairly comfortable with, I'm like all day long to have their SEO and their ranking, like for me to be able to surf that alone is worth it. But you're right, there's a lot of, and there's different kinds of hosts. I don't have any problem with staying in lines. I think that what they offer me is a very clean model, and somebody did and floods my bathroom, and puts wipes down the toilet, and I got to come have that thing, $700 later. I just get a check in the mail. So I like that. But I also would say that doesn't mean you shouldn't have your own private platform, meaning your own website, and that there aren't a lot of opportunities if you have someone like myself build that website with bots in mind.
So you're saying maybe start potentially on Airbnb and build up that clientele. And then if you have repeat guests, maybe reach out to them via a mailing list or something like that in order to get them to book outside of Airbnb.
Right. And I will say Airbnb really, and they've got bots as well. These are not humans. So they will knock you up, kick you off if they see you pushing people off the platform. What you would probably do as a strategy would be, and I think this is great because it's return guests. So then you've at least had an experience with them, right? Because we go back to the ranking and the accountability, all those things. So let's say if you wanted to put a QR code in your thing and say, hey, if you'd love to return, but would like to avoid the fees in the future, go here, and they can snap on the QR code. I would say that's a good technique, a marketing technique, because now you have that person and you can flag that person. I have very few guests that I would say I have any issue with whatsoever. And even the bad ones are like just annoying. You know what I mean? They're not horrible. So I probably would keep a little journal. I would probably check my list and go, are you on my list? If they're on my list, I'd probably just say, oh, unfortunately, and I go block those days. So that's what I probably.
That's all great advice.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's what I will also say. It's actually a vulnerability too, is what I'll call double booking, because Airbnb will slam you for that as well. Somebody tries to book you on Airbnb. It's going to behoove you to tell the person that booked with you privately, sorry, there was a double booking. Airbnb will penalize you if you cancel on them.
Is there no way to link an external calendar? Like I know you can link Vrbo and Airbnb and HipCamp and Airbnb. There's no way to link an external calendar?
I would say if you're doing it, it better be a third party, you better be using like a third party app that is known, has a great track record.
Okay, I have a question before we wrap. And this conversation is so awesome. I just really appreciate all the knowledge that you're sharing, Carrie. Speaking of, I am wondering, I know that you've been working on updating your own website and marketing, and you have some really incredible offerings for your clients to be. Do you offer an Airbnb setup package?
I do. And so if people want, they can go, to be honest with you, excuse me, I'm me. So you can go to Carrie. It's spelled like the horror flick, Carrie. I'm so much nicer though, I promise. But it's Carrie and then A as in Apple, Davis, Davis.com. Like I said, I created a transaction model. I have worked with agencies, for agencies. I have been in this industry a long time. I understand the pain points of people. And I decided to step away from what we call a retainer model, where you give me a big chunk of money, you say, I sure hope you spend it well, and I give you a bunch of confusing data, but your phone still didn't ring. And my model is very transactional. What that means to you is it's very clear. If you go to my site, you can go to this pricing, and you can literally just see exactly how much it would cost to have me build out your profile. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I will add to, your hand at staging and presentation is just stellar. And so that really goes into your photo taking and what you can present for your clients. But that's awesome that you have that package, because I can imagine some listeners are like, okay, I love that she gave all the information. You have to talk to the bots. You have to, be specific with your wording and do all these things. I don't want to do it. Like, help me. Where does your pricing start for something like that, for fixing up a listing?
I have a lot of services around the $500 mark, we'll just say. You know,
Oh, wow.
$500,000, there's a lot of things that I can do for you. And like I said, it's very transactional. So the difference between reaching out to me and maybe, you know, an agency will call it, or, you know, even a lot of other marketing folks that are independent, you're going to know exactly what, in fact, when you go to my website and the pricing, if you click on it looks like a store item, it will open up and there is a plethora of like details. It'll say exactly, it outlines exactly what you're going to get. And it really will give you a clear, you know, understanding of what you can expect as the deliverable. And that way there is no, you don't have to worry about me stringing you along. And then there's costs on top of that. Nope. You know, it's very clear exchange, very simple exchange.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Jen, do you have any more questions?
No, no more questions from my side, but I just want to reiterate how grateful I am that you're here and for all of this information. This is absolute gold. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. This was really fun. And, you know, we've been talking about this, Odessa and us all getting in the ring together for a long time. I mean, what, at least a year. I'm super stoked to have been able to meet you and to come on here. I really feel honored that you would see me as a voice that was even worthy of being listened to, because I clearly have a voice. You know,
We love
I'm
women
not-
with a voice.
Yes,
I have not.
me too.
No, I really appreciate you guys giving me the time, and I really hope that this will inspire, encourage, and educate people, because I do care about their vision and their dream. And I know, and Jen, I know that you're aware of this, Odessa, you're aware of this, the sweat, blood, tears, exhaustion, timelines, budgets. I mean, you could go on, you know, contractors. I mean, you could go on for days. This is not for the faint of heart. It takes dedication. It takes the next level of passion and vision to even go here. And so what my hope is that this information helps people not only grow their vision and actually make it successful, but I'll be honest, more importantly, I'm hoping that the information saves people's dreams, their families, their livelihoods. I genuinely, and I would say to you, if you are struggling and if you feel like you would like to have someone on your team that would help, I would love to help you. So please reach out. Please reach out.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Before Jen closes us out, I'm just going to offer a quick little journal prompt. I heard something that you said, Carrie. I heard a lot of wonderful things that you said, but you said at one point, it's a massive universe. And I was just thinking about how the three of us are sitting together today in this massive universe, and just the power of us coming together and the chances of us finding each other. And so my journal prompt to everyone today, our listeners, is feeling into that massive universe. What would you like to find or pull to yourself in this massive universe? What kind of collaborations? What kind of possible collaborations? Especially because this is primarily for the women of the world, Femmenomics. What kind of women would you like to pull to you in this massive universe that we are sitting here in?
I would like to say that this is a conversation that Odessa and I have been having for years now. And I recently journaled a list of characteristics I wanted in a woman for a caretaker for my property. And the very next day, she showed up. And the one that was the most mind-boggling to me is that I wanted her to be adept at cleaning, because I'm running Airbnbs and I need someone close who can clean. She owns a freaking cleaning company. Like, she is so she's amazing. She has all the things that I wanted. And as hard as it is to sometimes have faith in it, it is true that you can get everything that you want and you don't have to settle. I love that journal prompt, Odessa.
Yeah, I do too, because, you know, I had a similar situation where I was transitioning between cleaners, and I have to be honest, I realized I tried cleaning companies. That was not going to work for me because I needed a person. And I remember talking to a few people in my world that are not in this world, right? Like they are just, you know, like your family, whatever, and just kind of processing, because I'm an hour processor, if you could guess. And I literally was saying that they have to be able to do this, but they have to, you know, love the idea of putting truffles by the bed or whatever that is, you know, like Making sure the battery, like the candles, the battery operated candles are like not dead, like silly things that a cleaner is never going to care about, right? I will say the people in my world that aren't in this world, I can tell you, they all said, well, Carrie, that's just not realistic. Carrie, what you're asking is that's just not possible. And you really need to set your expectations. We just don't want you to be disappointed. They knew I needed somebody and I didn't have time nor the luxury of screwing around, right? But I will tell you, and Nessa knows this, that person dropped right out of the thin blue sky, and I was mind blown, like literally. And I've been mind blown ever since. So you are correct. And sometimes you receive not because you ask not.
That's so true. That's so true. Now it's time to spike the ball in the face of all the people who said we couldn't do it.
That's right. Thank God for those people.
Exactly. Oh, it's my biggest. Tell me I can't, and I'll do it twice.
That's right.
Yeah, seriously. Oh, there's another t-shirt. There's a Femmenomics t-shirt, Jen. I'm making a note of that one.
I thought of another one last night that I want. I want one that says "Don't encourage me"
Oh,
with an eye roll emoji.
Oh gosh, I might take up wearing t-shirts. I might have to cut the neck out so it's like hangs off the shoulder like 80s, because that's kind of my
Flash dance.
Oh, I'd love
Flash
that.
dance.
The sweater.
Yeah, I've decided what am I, 51 now? I've decided that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be frozen in the 80s. I'm like, it's going to be off the shoulder sweatshirts and Converse till I'm 85, 90 years old.
I love that vision tremendously. Hot pink everything.
Right. I have to show you my hot pink dress.
Of course.
So,
Of course you have a hot pink dress, but I've got
that.
sparkles,
that's right. Sparkles for sure.
glitter. Oh my gosh,
A
ladies.
resident disco ball.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here. We had a wonderful, wonderful discussion today. That was amazing. If you would like to hear more, we drop a podcast every week. You can listen to us on Spotify and Apple. If you like what you hear, please drop us a 5-star review and share with your friends. That helps us so much, that word of mouth. You can contact us at Femmenomics2024@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Femmenomics2024. Femmenomics_2024. And you can always join the free Facebook group, Femmenomics. We talk about all things real estate mindset and magic there as well. We would love to have you. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today.